Right, hello.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Proper Good podcast. I'm Lisa, and we are here at Title Pro Studios in Bolton, which is a beautiful podcast studio, social media branding agency who host us to record these lovely conversations. Proper Good, for anybody who doesn't know, I like to do this a little bit at the beginning, just in case anybody doesn't know. Proper Good is a programme of enterprise development support and social investment for social enterprises. Social enterprises are businesses that trade and operate as a business would, but rather than keeping their profits and surplus for themselves, they reinvest it into their communities of interest. And Proper Good is all about supporting those organisations to develop their trading and business skills so that they can be more financially sustainable and ultimately do more of the great work that they do and have a bigger social impact. The Proper Good programme has got loads of different bits to it. We offer workshops, access to consultant support, we have monthly drop-ins, we have network events, one of which I'm hosting with our guest next month. We have a business mentoring programme, all with the aim of bringing social enterprises together, connecting them with experts who can help them through any of the sticky issues. And the aim of this podcast is sort of threefold, really. One is to spotlight and shine a light on all the amazing social enterprises that are doing great work in Bolton and across our region. The other is to have conversations that maybe pull out some of the key common issues, challenges, opportunities that organisations in our sector are facing. And the other is to sort of share a little bit about Proper Good and what Proper Good's got on offer and how it can help and support with some of those things. So that's why we're here. That's why I keep yapping on every so often, and then get to speak to an amazing, interesting guest. Today, I'm joined by a leader of a social enterprise in Bolton that's a little bit different to some of the other enterprises that we've spoken to so far. So I'm really excited about what our conversation will bring up. I'd love it if you could introduce yourself.
Yes, thanks, Lisa. So, I'm Joanna Fianu. I'm the shop manager of Justicia Fair Trade Shop. I've been involved in fair trade for 2 decades, really. Started my own business in 2005 selling fair trade products on markets and that sort of thing. Did used to do the Christmas market in Manchester, for example. And I've also been heavily involved in fair trade campaigning because I think you can't sell fair trade products without getting involved in where they come from, who makes them, what they're made from, all of that story behind them, and being able to tell people the story behind the products and the people that make them. That's the key for fair trade for me.
That's amazing. Oh, so interesting. There's so many questions I want to ask you. Just before we started, we were talking, weren't there? It was like, no, keep them in, keep all my questions in for while we're rolling. Thank you for that. Tell us a bit about Justicia.
So
What is it? Where is it? What do you do?
So Justicia has been open in Bolton for 40 years. We're celebrating our
40 years,
Yeah.
blimey neck, I didn't know that.
Yeah, 1985 we opened. And so we were one of the first fair trade shops in the country, really. We were a founder member of the British Association for Fair Trade Shops, which started 10 years later in 1995. And we've been members ever since. And we have grown with those organisations, grown with the way fair trade has got bigger and bigger in the UK. So the fair trade market was introduced in 1993. And so over the past 30 years, people have got more and more used to seeing fair trade products in supermarkets and that kind of thing. But there are lots more products that you can get that are fair trade, and you need a dedicated fair trade shop for that. So you can buy everything from earrings to deodorant that's fair trade mark. You can get gin. We don't sell gin because we're not licensed, but you can get all
Earrings and gin. I mean, I would like to point out at this point that these very earrings, I haven't done this on purpose, but these are from Justicia, these earrings.
Absolutely. So because people have got an idea about what fair trade is and that they go to buy their tea, coffee, sugar,
Oh, yeah.
Bananas is a big thing.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do as fair trade campaigners is dress up as bananas quite often. So if you look at our biggest social media post, the one that got the most traction was basically just a compilation of all of us dressed as bananas.
Oh, we missed a trick there. I could have suggested that as a get up for us both, couldn't we? Maybe there'll be like an add-on clip on social media. Bananas.
Yes, so we're based out of the New Horizons Centre, which is part of the United Reformed Church in Bolton, near where Primark is. So, and the big multi-storey car park.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will walk past us on the way into town. That's where they park. And we're open 4 days a week, fully staffed by volunteers. At the moment, we're closed for refurbishment. It's going to be very exciting when it reopens. It's looking great. So yeah, very excited to be back open after all this time.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for I had some sense of the history of Justicia, but I didn't know it was quite that long and quite that grand. I mean, what a thing to be proud of in our town, eh? That we have that started here, that we have that shop.
At one point, Bolton was the biggest fair trade town in the world.
Wow.
Yes, because Garstang was the first fair trade town
Yeah.
in the world, and Bolton followed on quite quickly thereafter. So yes, because it was one of the first, it was the biggest.
We have such a proud history in Bolton, don't we, of supporting people, artisan traders, like connection to produce. It's a beautiful thing, and that's the thing about social enterprise, isn't it? It can often connect to those issues, artisan producing, ethical supply chain in a way that other businesses can, but maybe don't always have at the front of what they're doing. So you tapped in, you started to talk a little bit there about what fair trade is and what it means. Before we sort of press go on the cameras, you were telling me a little bit. I understand you've got quite a long history working in and with fair trade. I'd love for you to tell me a little bit more about like what is fair trade. So where did you start off? What's your history? And what is fair trade? Where did it come from, and why is it really important? In whatever order you'd like to answer those questions.
Yes, so I started my business in 2005. I was visiting a friend in Mexico, and would found all these amazing crafts that I'd not seen anywhere in the UK. And at the time, I'd just started trading on eBay, so I thought, oh, I could just buy a few things, bring them back, sell them, make back the cost of the trip. That was the original idea.
Okay.
And then we got drunk.
This is where all the good stories
Yes,
start.
a lot of it's amazing how many social enterprises are started by people who get drunk and go, why don't we do?
Let's do the thing. Yeah.
Because you sort of, I always think you are either at your best or your worst when you're drunk, and a lot of social entrepreneurs are at their best when
Yeah.
because you lose your inhibitions, and there's nobody to tell you
Yeah.
that's not going to work.
Bad idea. Yeah.
So yeah, we got all these things, and then my friend and I were chatting, and she said, I live in Mexico. I've got a Mexican partner. We can source things here, and we'll send them over to you, and you can sell them. And then wow, the business was started. And at the time, I hadn't really considered fair trade. I was buying fair trade tea bags, Clipper tea bags, which is one of the first fair trade products. And that was basically the from top and bottom of my association with it. I am of the generation where we didn't do a bit of fair trade at school because it didn't exist.
Yeah.
We talked to anybody under about 25. They didn't.
Yeah, we definitely
Schools learned about it. That's one of the things that we do at Justicia. We go out into local schools and do workshops and assemblies all the time.
Oh, I'm happy to.
So that's part of our sort of social impact. And so once I'd brought all these products back and I booked a couple of craft fairs, and one of the first questions that somebody asked me at the first craft fair I did was, is the stuff fair trade? And I hadn't even thought that craft could be fair trade at that point. So I did a bit of research, fell down a rabbit hole. 20 years later, I'm still down outside my because there's so much to learn about fair trade.
Yeah.
It's very complicated because of all of the different products. So there's two different ways of categorizing fair trade. So the one that we know, which is the little circular mark with a person waiting.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. That's on your tea, your coffees, your chocolate. But the other way is fair trade, 2 words. And that's 10 principles of fair trade, which are, to me, if you live by those 10 principles, you are living a good life. So there are things like treating people fairly, paying people fairly, making sure that people have good working conditions, obviously no child labour, no forced labour. Gender equity is a huge thing. Gender equity has always been crucial to fair trade.
Okay.
And so supporting women
Right.
artisans in places that they wouldn't necessarily get the opportunity to work. We've got some amazing earrings in the shop that are made by women in Iran. Now, Iran is one of those places where women find it hard to go out and work. So the organisation Papital Gallery, they work with groups of ladies, train them how to make the jewellery. They have a way of making money for themselves. And evidence shows that when women make money for themselves, they spend it on their families. And a lot of the time when men make money for themselves, they spend it on themselves.
Okay.
So it's one of the best ways of international development and poverty reduction is to make sure that the money goes into the hands of women. That's what we used to do.
That's
Family
really interesting.
That's when they introduced family allowance here in at the beginning of the 20th century. It was for the mother
Yeah.
to have her own money so she couldn't be exploited.
Yeah.
It's a really good way of stopping people being
Yeah.
exploited is
Yeah.
if you can own and have your own money, aside from knowing that you've made that money yourself and the power and freedom that you get from that.
Yes.
That's what fair trade's all about for me. It's just helping people to realise their potential.
Yeah, absolutely. And power and freedom. And so I know a lot of fair trade products obviously come from the global majority world, don't they? The global south. And you were telling me a little bit earlier around kind of a little bit about African history. And I don't, we've not got time to go down a big rabbit hole, but kind of why is it so important that here in the West we make sure that and I'm interested as well in, and I imagine there's some very clear history around this, around why it is tea, coffee and bananas and chocolate that tends to be the main products that we think of when we think of fair trade. I'd love to understand a little bit more about that and kind of the history of that and that where it comes from.
Yes, so there's a really interesting map on the Fair Trade Foundation website. And this map doesn't do what they think it does. It's a map of producer countries and purchaser countries. And it's also a map of colonialism.
Okay.
So basically, all of the producer countries are in South America, in Asia, and Africa, and those are the countries that were colonized by Europeans. Last week I was in Cape Coast in Ghana, and the history of unfair trade for me pretty much starts with the transatlantic slave trade and the mechanisms that industrialize the abuse of human beings. And so basically how that worked was there were products that we as Europeans, and we do have to take responsibility, I believe, we as Europeans wanted to buy. And so we found places that they could be grown. But the people who were already in those places, the Native Americans, either succumbed to European diseases or just there weren't enough of them to do the work. So we thought, well, we could go to Africa, we could just bring all these Africans, they'll be immune to the tropical diseases, they work really hard. And that was the impetus behind the transatlantic slave trade was that Africans are dependable and expendable. And that's really a really difficult thing to sit with.
Yeah.
The sense that these people are different from Europeans and therefore can be exploited. And so global trade has been unfair for 400 years. And fair trade is all about giving back and making sure that that's kind of exploitation doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
I was driving here this morning and there was a lorry from Marshalls, which I think is a building supply company. And on the back it said, "End modern slavery." Now, the fact that a big company has got that front and centre of because there's an understanding that there are still industries now where modern slavery is rife.
Yeah.
And one of those places, because we can't see it, we don't identify it, is in plantations of the tea, the coffee, the sugar, the cotton, all of these things were things that were picked by enslaved people. And tea in Assam is indentured labour, so Indian tea producers, they're still using indentured labour on plantations. And so choosing fair trade is a way of standing up and saying, not in my name.
Yeah.
I don't want to have a cup of tea or buy a banana or the handbag or whatever that somebody has been exploited to make.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's very powerful little synopsis there. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's it speaks to me about we can often feel in the face of some of the challenges, the many myriad challenges in the modern world. It's not just the modern world, the capitalist world, whatever, however you might want to phrase that. Um, they feel massive, don't they? They feel intimate, the climate crisis, war, all the things that are going on, and you can feel despair. And actually, it sounds like what you're saying is supporting fair trade is a really solid, impactful, actually, way to make a small action that really does make a difference. Because actually, we all know that the thing that speaks to businesses is how you spend your money, isn't it? And
Indeed.
what's that phrase is for, every pound you spend is an investment in the world you want to see, or whatever that
Yes.
phrase is that I'm misquoting. But yeah, we're all humans, and that can sometimes feel like a bit of a twee statement almost, but it's true. And I think, you said more now more than ever, and I think you're absolutely right. And as we said before, these challenges of modernity, do we want to put it like that? That sounds very wordy, but some of these big challenges that we're seeing at the moment, if we can find that solidarity and connection with one another, whether that be within our own communities or across communities, all the more important. We could recognise that lots of these divisions are artificial, they're being orchestrated by people who benefit from those. And again, and I always bring it back to social enterprise and what I see the power and the value of it is, because when I came into this role, I was new to social enterprise. I didn't know that. I knew a bit about it, but I didn't know loads. And the more and more people that I speak to, the more people that I meet, the more reading that I do, the more you see the power for transformation that sits within this world around ethical supply, around solidarity, around collaboration, around, nobody's saying that we shouldn't make money, but we're saying if we're making money, let's do some good with it. Let's benefit people in our own communities. And again, that kind of cross community, working with people with lived experience. Again, the other, again, in Bolton, lots of the social enterprises I see are people from all different communities, lots of people from migrant communities who are coming, working really hard, working hard to make better outcomes for the people in their own community, but then work with people outside of their communities, create community wealth for everybody that lives in that area. The idea that migration is a bad thing seems to me to be very short-sighted, actually, and fairly historically blind.
Yes.
If you look around at all the benefits of migration. So it's wonderful that everything you talked about there around fair trade gives us an opportunity as consumers to connect with some of those ideas, doesn't it? And make a real positive impact, tangible action in the money that we spend. I'd love to take us back a little bit to Justicia and kind of ground us a little bit in Justicia. So Justicia is on Market Street.
Knowsley Street.
Knowsley Street. It nearly said Newport Street. That's the other side. So on Knowsley Street. And you talked a little bit about, so obviously you sell the big hitters, the tea, the coffee, and not bananas, I don't think. You don't sell any fresh produce, do you? But yeah, what can people expect to find if they walk through the door in Justicia? What can they buy there? Why might they come?
So we have we hope to have something for everyone. Essentially, when you walk into a fair trade shop, some people are slightly discombobulated because it's basically a gift shop that sells tea bags. So we have a whole range of gift where we've got little musical instruments, so the sort of African drums that people are familiar with. We sell lots of little flutes, particularly to small children whose parents do not thank us for it. We have a beautiful range of items that have been upcycled or recycled. So lots of our, say, our handbags are made from sort of leather offcuts, or they're made from or bicycle tires, or they're made from sort of recycled polyester and that kind of thing. and patchwork. So we sell a range of fabulous products made in Ghana, which are made from the water sachets that people drink from and then discard. So they're put together, and it's fantastic for a handbag because, or like a wash bag or whatever, because
Yeah.
it's waterproof. We sell a fabulous range of recycled aluminium products, which are really popular. They are made in India, and it's a really ancient tradition from this particular region in India. And they design is very contemporary design, so they work with. One of the nice things about fair trade is the short supply chains.
Mm.
So you know that when you buy from a person, and we know all of our suppliers personally,
Yeah.
when we buy from them, the last person you can shake their hand, and the last person's hand they shook might be the person who made the thing that
Right.
you're buying. So
Amazing.
it's that very, very short supply chain, and they work directly with producers all around the world, whether that's in Latin America or in Africa or in Asia, and they build on the skills they already have, train them to make things that have got a market in the UK.
Yeah.
So that capacity building,
Yeah.
market building
Yeah.
is so important to fair trade. So we've got a whole range of gorgeous jewellery at all sorts of different price points. One of the sets of jewellery that we sell is from a company called Virtue. And each one you'll buy, it's got a card with the name of a country on it. And when you buy a pair of earrings, a percentage of the profits go to the school in that country, because the guy who designs them, his designs are inspired by children's drawings.
Oh, what's
So he goes to the school and the children do drawings, and he picks one, makes some earrings based on their drawing. Always makes sure he gives them a pair.
Yeah.
They have like either for themselves or their mum. And then a percentage goes back to that school. So it's really simple. A lot of fair trade is really basic stuff, like you buy this and this happens.
Yeah.
Social enterprise is the same. All sort of buy one, give one models. You know, you buy a pair of socks and someone else gets a pair
Yeah.
of socks that needs them. And it's so easy to explain that in terms of social enterprise. Sometimes people think that it's fair trade is difficult to explain because it's complicated in the supply chains. And people will tell you, and people have told me for 20 years, there's no such thing as fair trade. Everybody's exploiting everybody else. And it's such a cynical attitude, because I have seen that that is not the case.
Yeah.
I've been to India, I've been to Thailand, I've been to Sri Lanka, I've been to Mexico and Peru and Ghana and Madagascar. I've been to these places. I've seen the impact that fair trade has on these people, and then hearing the stories secondhand as well from the suppliers that go out and visit these people, you know that there is a very strong impact being made in these communities and over time, so it's sustainable.
Yeah.
So fair trade's been around for however you want to measure it, 30, 50, 70 years, whatever. Global trade has been unfair for 400 years. So yes, we're making incremental differences, and we're making big differences in some individuals' lives.
Yeah.
But we're not going to fix it within our lifetimes. Doesn't mean it's not worth doing.
Yeah.
And I can certainly say that when you buy a fair trade product, the impact versus you not buying a fair trade product is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really key point there around, even though we might not see a full transformation in supply chains, and just that shortening of supply chains is a multi-generational task, isn't it? But that doesn't mean it's not worth trying now. And that's kind of like a call to action for everything that we want to do in the world right now, isn't it? It's like, you've got to try. What are you doing if you're not trying? Like, what are you doing if you're not finding your place and doing your bit?
And it can be. I mean, Tony's Chocolonely has got, basically, it's got 1/3 market share in the Netherlands now. So they're based in the Netherlands. They're like the third biggest chocolate company in the Netherlands. Everyone buys it. They've got a stall at Schiphol Airport. And that shows that doing it properly and making fair trade important, but also having a quality product that's beautifully designed, very nicely marketed, that goes a long way.
Yeah.
And so we know that there are lots of beautiful products that people buy and don't care whether they're fair trade.
Yeah.
For me, when I started my business, I wanted to run a fair trade business for me, but I understand that, when you're talking to the general public, they don't necessarily care about fair trade.
Yeah.
But it's about making businesses see the case for it.
Yeah.
And we're getting more and more to the point where conventional businesses are adopting some of the the fair trade principles and seeing it. And B Corp's a big part of
Yeah.
this. So B Corp I always see as a sort of halfway house between conventional trade and social enterprise fair trade. But basically they're showing willing, and that's good.
Yeah. And there's a whole thing of you've got to meet people where they are in everything in life, haven't you? You've got to meet people where they are. And for some businesses, completely move into a fair trade model or buying everything through fair trade might not be feasible, but actually those little steps towards that way of operating or a social enterprise model is absolutely, it's hopeful, isn't it? And it's people doing what they can do and meeting them where they are. I had another thought then that's completely gone out of my brain, which is really, really not useful. So I'll pick it back up later. But so you mentioned something when we first started talking around justice. So obviously you've got this real global positive impact around fair trade, but I know that through the shop you also have a real positive local impact because you, as you said, run the shop using volunteers. Not using volunteers, you give people opportunities to volunteer in the shop in a town centre retail environment, which is really helpful for people who perhaps can't work or are a bit far away from the labour market. And you've got an education piece going on there, as you said, you're out and you're campaigning. You're running a retail business as a social enterprise, which is no mean feat and not something that we've chatted about before on this podcast, actually. And you're running a retail space in Bolton Town Centre, which is also no easy feat at the moment for anybody who lives in Bolton. It's, the town centre's got some challenges at the moment and lots of people are working really hard to regenerate it, but there's some challenges. So I wanted to ask you, that's a lot of plates to be spinning as the leader of an organisation. And I just wanted to ask kind of how do you go about managing all of those competing priorities and aims? Because obviously they are all part of your aim and mission as your organisation. And I wondered what are the opportunities, challenges around balancing all of that. I'm particularly interested in what it's like to run a social enterprise in the town centre at the minute. I'd be really interested in how is it to balance all that stuff?
Yeah, so independent retail is hard, but definitely worthwhile. You've got to basically make yourself a destination.
Yeah.
So we've got to be one of the reasons that people want to come into Bolton. And there are things that that can be done to make it easier for people to come in terms of like being able to park somewhere and having other things on. This weekend we had the Bolton Food Festival, and that's always incredibly busy, and it's a great way of people coming into the shop. But if the standard offer for a customer coming into Bolton isn't as good as, for example, Bury, we're here. So I'm talking to a lot of people about kind of why don't you come? Chorley, Bury, Horwich. There's places that people go to shop because it's a nicer experience. So that's a big challenge. Bolton Town Centre, a lot of our customers, they come in, they go to us, and then they just go away again because they've got a reason to come to us, and we want to be that destination. And we hope that being able to offer something distinct. We have the biggest range of fair trade products in Greater Manchester. So we get people from all over. We've got customers from Chorlton and Gatley and from all over, Stockport and Tameside. And so being able to offer something unique is great. About half of our turnover comes from sales off-site. So that's either with the churches. We have a lot of fabulous local churches who have stalls regularly once a month. And then we do events and work with schools. So whenever we go to school, we have certain amounts of products that the kids love to buy, pocket money items. And we've just opened an eBay store, which is doing actually really well.
That's really exciting.
That is really exciting because while we're closed for refurbishment, it's important that we keep getting regular sales. So eBay is the way that we're accessing that. That's the eBay for Change program for social enterprises has really helped us to sort of get good at that. And actually, the reason that we are able to justify keeping the shop open and offering those opportunities for volunteers is because our landlords are brilliant. So our landlord is the United Reformed Church,
Okay.
and they're fantastic. And,
Right.
anything we want to do, they help us. It's a grade 2 listed building, which poses its own
It's a
challenges.
beautiful building, but
it's-
yeah, I imagine it's a
Yeah,
challenge.
so things like the windows and anything that you want to do, it's not necessarily straightforward to do, but worth it.
Mm.
And so there are lots of things that help us continue. So one of the things that I've never worked with this many volunteers before, so I think we've got about 30 on the books.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a
And
big
they
number.
do so the shop is, as I say, it's open 4 days a week with 2 shifts.
Mm.
So and then we aim to have 2 volunteers in at any one time. So that's 16 to start with.
Yeah.
And some will only want to come once a month, once a fortnight, and that's fine. We're really flexible in terms of if you can make it fit round what your capabilities are.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of volunteers who are asylum seekers. Obviously they can't work, but they want and need to volunteer. Partly it's helping their English skills to improve. So we offer the opportunity to work in the back office, and putting together orders and all of that sort of thing as well. And then just like tidying the stuff.
Yeah.
It's some visas,
Yeah, I know.
just keeping on top of stuff.
Yeah.
So we offering a range of different retail opportunities. We've got a volunteer who comes in, and she loves doing photography. So she does our product photography and eBay stuff, and she's so good. She's got a real good eye.
Yeah.
So things like that is bad. And she'd just come in to volunteer in the retail side. And we were having a conversation, and she said that she had done a bit of photography and would be interested. And it's picking up on when people
Wonderful.
show an interest in an aspect
Yeah.
of the business, then offering them the opportunity.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we want those who can move into work, we want to give them a proper work experience. And anything that they're interested in, if they want to help us with the social media or the website or the eBay sales or whatever they're interested in, we'll try and give them some experience in doing that, because that's our job.
Yeah.
And those that will never be in a position to go into paid employment. We have people with learning difficulties that have been volunteering with us for many, many years. And it's helping their confidence
Yeah.
and just giving them something to do that they can be proud of.
Absolutely, some purpose. We all need a reason to get out of bed in the morning, don't we? And absolutely, and it's wonderful. And full disclosure, I am a long-serving customer of Justicia, and I always have a wonderful experience in the shop. And it's been great for me to learn a little bit more about the kind of what goes on behind the scenes of the shop. There's so much in running that shop. It's absolutely not
Yes.
just selling some pretty
Yes.
things, is it?
That's why I'll say my job title officially is shop manager, but in practice, like I'm only in the shop if something's gone wrong and once you stand up. But it's essentially a business manager, and you're sort of firefighting volunteers with challenges, and people coming in with orders, and there's lots of aspects that aren't just being in the shop.
Yeah, there's a huge amount patchwork together to keep the business running, isn't there?
And choosing the stock and making sure that we have enough of all of our basics, and then keeping on top of new things as well. So when new suppliers join the Association for Fair Trade Shops, the Fair Trade Network, then we look at what they've got and whether that's something that we can incorporate. So we've managed to place orders with, I think, 8 new suppliers this year.
Oh, that's ace. That's brilliant.
And that's the thing, because people, the number one thing that when I go out and do stalls and things, and people say, "Oh, are you still there? I haven't been in for ages." Come in,
Yeah,
because
come.
it's different from what you saw last time. Whenever it was that unless you were in last week,
absolutely. Yeah.
you'll be surprised.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised at the range of different things that we've got, and all of the different stories that we can tell you, and the new sort of recycled, upcycled, beautiful products, and just like contemporary design.
Yeah.
And anytime you're looking for any kind of a gift, we still sell cards,
Yeah.
huge numbers of Christmas cards, but
Yeah.
obviously, but we also sell occasions cards. And people have said that we're one of the few places you can actually buy a greetings card in Bolton these days.
Yeah, if you don't want to just go to the standard shops, you're absolutely right. There aren't very many. I often come to you guys for a card. And the other thing that I just want to pull out is that as well as all of those very beautiful things, you also have a really good kind of food offer, don't you? Basics offer, tea bags, biscuits, all that kind of stuff. And you do some refills as well, don't you? So there's nowhere else in Bolton in the town centre where you can go and fill up your cleaning products and your toiletries and stuff. And you guys have, and I know often people don't realise that you sell that stuff as well. So actually, if you're in the town centre and you need some tea bags or you need some washing up liquid, or actually you are a place where you can nip in and get some essentials as well. It's not just for a gift. Or
Yeah, there's a campaign, a retail campaign called Just a Card,
Mm.
and that encourages people to exactly that.
Yeah.
If you are an independent retailer, if you have 10 people that come into your shop and they all buy a card, that is a good day.
Yeah.
Because we're operating at that
And
sort of
those kind of margins, yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
Just that's all we want is come in. And even if you don't buy anything now, if you're thinking in terms of Christmas, in terms of birthdays,
Yeah.
come and have a look, see what we've got, and hopefully you'll see something that will be perfect for someone, and you think, yeah, I'll come back when it's their birthday.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're always welcome to come in. Come in it's a beautiful day today, but come in out of the rain and
Yeah.
just the volunteers are always happy to see you. They'll chat. They'll part of what we do, what one of the offer that we have for our volunteers is people with sort of they want to be out of the house, they want to be busy,
Yeah.
and so if you come in and just chat to our volunteers, they will be more than happy to chat to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's I mean, it's one of the beautiful things about independent retail, isn't it? That actually you can go into a shop and have a conversation rather than go into a self-service checkout where you don't interact with any human. And I appreciate that has its place for some people, but actually coming into your place, you can have a chat, you can have a look around. There's always beautiful things to look at and some essentials that you might need. It's a wonderful experience.
So fair trade for me, it's all about whether it's a producer in the global south or a customer here. It's about treating people as people rather than economic units.
Yeah.
So you're not just a pound sign,
Not just a consumer,
you're a
absolutely.
person.
Yeah.
You can come in and tell us your story, and then we'll welcome you, and yeah, it might be that we know about, because people come in from other social enterprises, and we have, because we're part of the New Horizons Centre, there are lots of groups, other social enterprises that meet there. So it might be that you come in and you're looking for something, and one of the other groups will be able to support you.
Yeah.
So yes, there's lots. It's all that sort of synergy.
Yeah.
And
A real hub to bring. And that's the thing, isn't it? Like being a hub where it's like human to human interact. I heard somebody talk about not business to business or customer to customer, it being human to human, and I loved that. And it sounds like that is absolutely what you're all about at Justice. Yeah. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, we are probably coming towards the end of our time. So I have no idea how long we've been talking. We could have been talking for 3 days at this point. I've not looked at the clock once. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about, just to divert ever so slightly, you have just completed some time on our business mentoring program, on the Proper Good Business Mentoring program. And I thought it would be remiss of me to not ask you a little bit about that on the Proper Good podcast. I'd love to know a little bit about kind of, did you have a sense of what you were looking for in terms of mentoring input through the program? And did you get that? And has it been useful, really? Just because anybody else watching might be interested to know that. They might be thinking about the mentoring program, but not quite sure if it's for them. And also, I know that when I was running my business, I didn't really understand the importance of mentoring and what that can mean and what it can do. Or not do. You might tell me it wasn't helpful. But yeah, I'd love to kind of know a little bit, like what was your experience of our mentoring program, and did it help?
Yeah, my motivation for wanting to come on the program was because I'd taken over this legacy business with 40 years of history, and we were in a position where we really needed to understand what we'd been doing and what we needed to do into the future. Very conscious that a lot of our volunteers that work out in the community for us are like the profile of a fair trade campaigner, they're in their 70s and 80s. And so actually, if Justicia is going to be around in 10 years' time, they may not be the people that are part of it. So
Sure.
how do we modernize? How do we make ourselves relevant to today's consumers? So one of the things I've mentioned is that I've been talking to a lot of people the kind of people who identify that should be coming into the shop and not.
Yeah.
And so that with the help of my mentor, we've talked through like how do we show up? What is Justicia to people,
Mm.
and how can we turn up rather than expecting them always to come to us? How can we go to them?
Mhm.
What are the ways that we can build this business and make sure that it's grounded and will survive and thrive into the future? And for me, my mentor Adrian, it was fantastic as a sounding board.
Mm.
He has a fair bit of experience in with working with retail businesses and working with different kind of ethical businesses, and so he did give me some great ideas. But mainly, it was just me saying, "I'm thinking this. What do you think?"
Yeah.
And sometimes you can say that to people who are in the business, but sometimes you can't,
Mhm.
particularly if it's something quite radical,
Mhm.
or that you think that they might not be able to take on board
Mm.
immediately. And people have that we've got some fantastic volunteers, and they've all got great ideas for what to do with the business, but some of them are not feasible.
Yeah.
And so understanding that if you've always like sort of had an idea about what you would do if you were the
Yeah.
manager, that's not necessarily helpful for me being the manager.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
So to be able to say, this is an idea that I had. Can you help me work through how it would work for us?
Yeah.
That's one of the great things with the mentoring. And the other thing was the plenary sessions that we had, which were
Mm.
brilliant. So we worked with a couple of different people on how to or building a business plan,
Mm.
because when you are a legacy business, um, a lot of the stuff that you're working with might be 5, 10, 15, 20 years old.
Mm.
So business plans for the next 5 years and 10 years and realistic ones are actually really important. And there's a tendency to just keep doing the things that you've been doing,
Mhm.
but there's also a potential for diminishing returns on that. So actually finding new markets, finding new places to be, and new ways for Justicia to make its mark in Bolton, in Greater Manchester, and nationally with the online and eBay sales.
Yeah.
So how do we balance the need for being in Bolton and supporting the people of Bolton with the volunteering opportunities and the opportunity to buy products they can't get anywhere else, with the fact that we are a business and we need to make a profit and we need to have a certain amount of turnover. And you were saying that retail's unusual for social enterprises. In fair trade, obviously, isn't.
Yeah. Only in Bolton, I must say. It's like, yeah.
But I think you're right. I think from my experience with Social Enterprise UK, the retail businesses that are part of that are not like the big boys.
Yeah.
Big boys are in health and social care and all
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So in a social enterprise, national context, retail isn't a huge part of it, and that's because we're selling things to people,
Yeah.
generally to the general public. And they don't necessarily care about our sort of information.
Yes.
So they're not. We don't necessarily want people to just buy from us because we're a social enterprise or because we're fair trade. And we want them to buy the products that they like.
Yeah.
And if we can then take that opportunity to tell them the story
Yeah.
and to explain to them why what they've done makes a difference,
Yeah.
and help them to come back.
Yeah.
Repeat customers
Yeah.
as welcome.
Yeah.
So yeah, and actually that help with building a sense of vision, mission, values fit for the 21st century and for the next 20 years of Justicia, and a business plan that will take us through what could be a tricky couple of years
Yeah.
still with retail. And yeah, out the other side.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm really pleased to hear what it sounds like it was really useful. And I think most people who come through the mentoring program talk that sounding board bit that you just referenced there. That's the bit that they talk about most. It's having somebody where you can just go, this is everything that's in my brain. Can you help me unpack it and figure out what's feasible? Because as you say, often within the business, particularly if you're the business development manager, you're not the shop manager, are you? Or the director, it's difficult to have some of those conversations for a myriad of different reasons, isn't it? So I'm really pleased it's been able to um, do that for you. And I really loved what you said there about products about selling. And for any business, this is the thing, isn't it? But particularly for social enterprises, it's you've got to give somebody something that they want, and the story comes on the back of it. And you've mentioned a lot of times while we've been talking around the story of things and storytelling, and I think that's massive for social enterprises because you're right, it isn't necessarily the reason that it will be the reason some people come to you, won't it? Because actually ethical consumerism is kind of like a growing little market and people are increasingly caring about where their stuff comes from and what impacts it has. But not everybody does. Um, but telling that story once people have come to you is really important, both in terms of your sales and also we've not even touched on your work with Social Enterprise UK. Telling the story of our sector is massively important, isn't it, in terms of influencing decision makers, people, procurement, people, how they buy their things, policy decisions. It's really so that storytelling bit, and there's a recognition in Bolton, part of our current VCSE strategy. One of the sort of pillars of that is around storytelling and how we still get better at telling the story of the sector. And it's a beautiful story to tell, isn't it? As you've just massively, illustrated and talking about fair trade and justice here. And I feel really strongly that something you and I should pick. I mean, you're already doing it, I'm sure, but if I could help in any way, how we connect in that massive history of Justicia with the We Are Bolton movement that's happening at the moment is such a thing to celebrate. And you're at that destination piece, if we can build, I know you are already doing that, but a story built around that, that is a thing to bring people to the town centre, isn't it? Which we so desperately, desperately need. I wanted to ask you, I often finish with these questions. One is what what inspires you to keep going? So, and I think you've alluded to a little bit of it, what or who, but you are managing what is a really complex business, actually, everything that's going on. Operating on really small margins, trying to keep something afloat in a global context that can feel really overwhelming, doing really great work. I'd love to know what or who inspires you to keep going at the moment.
So I feel like when I joined the fair trade movement, I found my tribe.
Yeah.
And we have the Thus Fair Trade Network. We have a conference every year,
Mm.
and it's 2 days of the most incredible, inspiring. Like there's talks, there's workshops, and this weekend actually is the International Fair Trade Times Conference. So people from all over the world, about 250 people from as far away as Japan and Korea and all over Europe and Africa coming together in Edinburgh. And those are the people that inspire me.
Mm.
So to hear that by you buying an item of jewelry or a handbag or a jar of jam
Mm.
or a packet of biscuits, this is the impact that you
Mm.
have on the person that grew the ingredients or made that product, and that they can feed their children, they can send them to school. That is what keeps me going. I know how much of an impact it has. And those are the people that I love to surround myself with. And yeah, I've got some amazing friends that do some incredible work all around the world, and we stock all of their products in the shop because, I know those stories and I know I can tell those stories and help our volunteers tell those stories to the customers. And so being that close to the people who really know what's going on, that's what keeps me going.
That's amazing. Are you attending that conference this weekend? Oh, what a wonderful time. What a beautiful city to have inspiring conversations. Amazing. And then the other question that I like to ask is if you have a message, something that you'd like to say, either to the general public, to other social enterprises, to decision makers, all three if you like. If you had one key message to say sort of on behalf of Justicia, on behalf of the fair trade movement, what would you like to say if you had a platform? What you do have a platform. What would you like to say?
So for me, choose fair trade. Choose the world you want. Because when you spend money, every time you spend money, you're casting a vote for the world you want. That's quote from, I think, Anne Lappa, which is called. I think you alluded to it earlier. And the idea that we exist in a vacuum, we don't. Where what I talked about earlier in terms of looking after our own, and that's everybody globally, all 7 billion of us. We're all individual human beings with the same thoughts and feelings and aspirations. We all want to make the best of ourselves. For me, I will not rest until a child born in Ghana has the same opportunities as a child born in Germany. That's what it's all about for me. And sharing the wealth, finding ways to make the world fairer through choosing to buy things, and particularly choosing not to buy things. Rejecting those corporations who control the food supply. And actually, a lot of the time, it's more expensive to do it that way. We buy from big corporations and they keep all those profits. And if you were to buy from a small organization that are non-profit, or where in terms of the social enterprise model, you're reinvesting those profits and you're supporting more and more people with those profits. That's what it's all about. So choose wisely, because everything you buy pays someone's wages.
And that, absolutely. Everybody's grown something. Somebody's grown it. Somebody's made it. Somebody's shipped it. If you're buying something very cheaply, somebody in that chain's been exploited. You have the power to choose, or we have the power to choose all the time. And we have different types of power, but we have power to choose, don't we? Thank you very much for that. If anybody watching would like to get in touch with Proper Good, my email will be on the end of this. You can just drop me a line. If you want to find out more about the support that we've got on offer for your organisation, then please do get in touch. And if you've got any questions, drop them in social media comments. I don't know, a place where you might drop a comment. There'll be a place, I imagine. I'd love to know your thoughts and ideas and feedback about this podcast, because maybe one time there might just be one that's me answering people's questions if you send some questions in. But what feels more important to me is if you have been inspired by the things that Joanna's said, and I'd be amazed if you haven't on some level, to be honest, if you'd like to connect, if you'd like to shop at Justicia, if you'd like to get involved in fair trade, how can people do that, Joanna? What's the best way to get in touch, either with Justicia or with the fair trade movement more generally?
So Fair Trade Fortnight's coming up. So that's from the 22nd of September to the 5th of October. There will be lots of events going on in our communities. If you want to get involved in fair trade in Bolton, Justicia is the hub for that. We have a dedicated officer at the council who deals with a lot of Bolton's status as a fair trade town. But we would very much welcome you to come along to Justicia and see how you can support us. If you want to sell fair trade products in your community, in your business, in your workplace, anything like that. If you want us to come along and do a talk, if you want us to do workshops, but Justicia is the hub for all things fair trade in Bolton. So pop along, email us. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. Just get in touch with us however whatever works best for you. And we will, whatever your passion is, we will help you incorporate fair trade into it.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Joanna. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. And we'll see you all again soon. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.